Hey, welcome to our class of Tuesday Night Beer School with me, Chad of Chad's Beer Reviews. We got a really special guest this time. We got Marty Nachel. Did I say your name right?
Rachel, just like Rachel.
Okay. Can you give the viewers a little overview on who you are?
Okay, well, I've been in and around the craft beer industry for close to 40 years now. I'm probably most known for the writing that I've been doing. I've been a freelance writer for many of those years,
Mhm.
and my claim to fame, so to speak, is my books "Beer for Dummies" and
Yep.
"Homebrew for Dummies." There you go. I've also been in the BJCP since 1986,
Mhm.
and I've been a professional judge since 1998.
Anyway, yeah, so I brought you on. So, by the way, we're going to do a podcast with Marty after this, so check that out. But yeah, I brought you on because you have this, and you have a couple tasting beer books. I got these on Amazon. Is that you on the cover?
It is, yeah.
Well, I thought, you've written a few beer books. I wrote one. um, I thought you'd be a really qualified person to do a Tuesday night beer school. So this is a style that I mean, I still like this style, but like it's really hard to find beers of this style anymore. So, and actually, I did a beer school on this probably about a year and a half ago, but it's been a while. So I thought I'd bring it back. So we're talking about category 13B British brown ale. Overall impression: a malty, caramelly brown British ale without the roasted flavors of a porter, balanced and flavorful, but usually a little stronger than most average UK beers. Comments: a wide-ranging category with different interpretations as possible, ranging from letter colored to hoppy to deeper, darker, and caramel folk. That's interesting. They start on color and then they shift to hoppy, and then I don't know.
It does
However,
oddly.
yeah, none of the versions have strongly roasted flavors. A stronger double brown ale is more popular, and London brown ales. Well, you can't even really get those anymore, at least not over here. Um, Yeah, so I mean, you guys can pause and read if you want about the history of brown ale in the UK and Britain. There's also the London brown ale, which is like a much sweeter version, but you don't really see those around anymore. So let's talk about style comparison. More malty than British bitters, with more malt flavors from darker grains, stronger than a dark mild, less roast than an English porter, stronger and much less sweet than the London brown ale. And for our vitals, it's not a super strong beer, 4.2 to 5.9. Well, it's funny because 4.2 is pretty sessionable, but I probably wouldn't session 5.9. And the list of examples on here, I know the first AleSmith and Cigar City are both American examples, and they have Maxim, Newcastle, Rig Welter, and of course Samuel Smith's Nut Brown Ale. And so we are actually going to judge two of the examples on there. So we have Sam Smith's Nut Brown Ale, one of my all-time favorites, and Cigar City Maduro. Um, I have a bottle and a can, and I believe Marty has cans for both.
I was fortunate enough to find the cans for the Sam Smith.
Yeah, it's actually nice seeing these kind of old British brewers using cans now. Yeah, because I have seen the oatmeal stout in cans, and they have their organic lager in cans and all that. So,
Hmm.
um, so when we're judging beer, we always start with aroma first. So, um, which one do you want to start with, Cigar City or Sam Smith's?
I poured the Sam first, so
Okay,
I'll go with
let's give
that.
that a whiff. And it's funny because when you're judging in an actual homebrew competition, you don't talk until you're finished. But this is an educational show. It'd be pretty boring if we just sat here in dead air, So, well, I definitely get a sweet smell on this one.
There's definitely caramel in there and some toffee.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really as big and bold as I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Have you not had this, or just hasn't been in a
It's
while?
been a while.
Yeah, I get like definitely some English yeast ale esters on there. It has like kind of like a general kind of little raisin or some kind of like dried fruit kind of essence to it. But I agree. I do get caramel, kind of toffee, But it also seems a little fruity to me.
Just a little bit. Like you said, the dried fruits.
Yeah.
What I'm very happy to say is that I'm not getting any evidence of it being, um, out of date, getting
Yeah.
old, getting oxidized, not getting any of those characteristics, which is good.
Yeah. I usually get oxidation as lemon lollipop, but sometimes it gets like, kind of cardboardy.
Hmm.
I don't get it on this, even though I think my bottle is like at least a year old. Um, by the way, are you getting hops on here at all?
Didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, I didn't really pick any out. None that really stood out to me.
I would expect this being a traditional British beer, even
Mhm,
though there's probably less than 20 IBU in this beer. Uh, the hops that they would typically use would be British hops, something along the line of Fuggles or East Kent Goldings, and those typically show as being kind of earthy and herbal. But
mhm.
I'm really not getting either of that.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to the Cigar City, and sometimes it's like it's a night and day difference. Yeah, I can. Wow.
Yeah, it is quite notable.
Yeah. My can is very fresh. Mine's like just about a month old. And like the first thing I noticed on here is like a kind of roasty, maybe not roasty, but like a kind of like a deeply toasted on this one.
Right. I was going to say like a toast biscuit.
Hmm. Yeah, to me this is like toasty bread, but it also has like a fruity essence. Fairly similar to the Sam Smiths.
This actually strikes me as being a little bit fruitier than the Sam,
Really?
along with other things. Overall, this is more complex. There's a lot of more things going on. The Sam Smith was kind of a two-note tune for me.
Mhm.
This has got probably three or four different things going on.
Yeah, for me, it's just like super toasty, and I do get like kind of like a raisiny kind of thing, or I get kind of like a hazelnut kind of like this. I'm not really getting caramel. To me, it's more like hazelnut, like Nutella or something.
Actually, I kind of like that Nutella, and I agree. There is that element in there. I do get some of the caramel and toffee, but it's kind of a
Mhm,
background note. It's certainly not one of the two major aromas coming forward.
mhm.
The biscuit or toast, and the like you said hazelnut Nutella.
Are you getting any hops?
I am definitely. That was also one of the notable attributes when I first smelled it.
What like citrus or
No, definitely not that.
just like earthy or floral?
More earthy than anything.
Mhm. Yeah, to me, there's almost almost like a burnt kind of note on this, but I think it's just kind of the melange of like just being like super fresh and like really toasty malt, and like there's definitely some yeast esters in there as well. Um, Also, I mean, this can is much fresher than this bottle by like at least a year.
Right.
Um,
And it's interesting to when you talk about things like that, as beers age, one of the characteristics that they take on is more of it's the malt character coming through. It
mhm.
exposes itself as being more caramel and toffee. So it stands to reason that the Sam Smith would exhibit more of those type characteristics.
Yeah, hops tend to drop fairly quickly. By the way, I forgot to mention, so the Cigar City is 5.5 ABV, and it actually says right on the can 20 IBUs. The Sam Smith's is 5% ABV, and I just looked it up on Untapped, and Untapped says it's 30 IBUs, which seems high to me.
Yeah, that really does.
Uh, anyway, let's check the specs on aroma. So it says light, sweet malt aroma with toffee, nutty, or light chocolate notes. You know what? Nutty. I think that's the word I was looking for on the Cigar City. I wouldn't say chocolate on either of these. And a
No,
light to heavy caramel quality, a light but appealing floral earthy hop aroma may also be noticed, so it's fairly optional. A light fruity aroma may be evident but should not dominate. That's interesting because I think on the Sam Smiths, I don't know if it dominates, but I mean, it's the yeast on that is pretty strong, and on the Cigar City, the malt and hops are much stronger. Like the yeast is kind of a background on that. So this is kind of tough to score. The Cigar City is it's also a fresher can too, so like it's just more pungent.
Right.
Um, I'm gonna go fairly high on this one. I'm gonna say 10. What do you think?
Um, considering that we're judging it as a British brown, I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 9.
Okay. That's what I was thinking for the Sam Smiths. Well, actually, I think I might give this a 10 too. I mean, it's one of the progenitors of the style. And like my only like hang up is like, they said yeast should not dominate, but like to me the yeast is like really prominent on here, but also like the toffee caramel maltiness is as
Mhm.
well. But it's really lacking on hops, but the hops, as it seemed like they said, it was pretty much optional. So
Right. It's really not an expectation of style. So
mhm.
I would go with 10 on the Sam Smith as well for aroma.
Okay. All right. Appearance. It started the way the lighting is. I will show pictures of when I had them both poured, but actually I'm looking at them right now, and they're both like a beautiful shade of like, I guess you could call it mahogany or like almost like magenta. It's like they're not even really brown. Like they're more of like a reddish
Yeah,
hue.
they do both show a reddish hue.
Yeah. And I got huge foam on both. The Sam Smith is hanging around a little bit more. I'd probably call it like a beige color for both beers.
Yeah, in terms of color, I think they're almost identical. And like you said, they both poured a nice big frothy head.
Mhm.
They've both broken down for the most part now, but I've been swirling the glasses. But the Sam Smith is hanging on a little bit more. You can see around the rim,
Yeah,
there's just, this is the Sam Smith over here. You
yeah.
see it's just a little tad more than
I said
Maduro.
the Sam Smith is lighter, but as far as I can tell, they're both very clear. I don't know. Did yours have haze at all?
I didn't notice any now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's check the specs on appearance. Dark amber to dark reddish brown color, clear, low to moderate off white to light tan head. Yeah. For me, they're both right there. I would give both of these a 3.
And I agree completely.
Okay. All right. Well, here comes the best part. We get to taste it. You want to start with the Cigar City or Sam Smith's?
I'm going to go with Sam Smith again because, especially after having smelled them,
Mhm.
I'm anticipating that the Maduro is going to be richer and more in your
Yeah.
face.
More done. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead with the Sam Smith first.
All right. Here we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hmm. The first impression that I get is this has like almost like a juice kind of taste to it because like it's so fruity as far as like the esters. So it's almost like it's not. I was gonna say like a fruit punch or something, but I mean not to that extent. But it's kind of like almost like Belgian-y, like those, but without the Belgian character. So like
Right, right.
dates, fig, raisin,
hmm
plum.
Um, there's a lot of the dried fruit there. Um, I'm still focusing on the caramel and toffee in the overall malt character of the beer.
Mhm.
One of the first things that I noticed, though, and I'm getting a little bit ahead here, is the mouthfeel. As I was taking that first sip, it had a creaminess that I was not expecting. Um, but unfortunately, on the downside, I am getting a little bit of oxidation here. Getting just
That's
a hint of that
interesting. Yeah.
creaminess.
Yeah, I'll come back on mouthfeel. I wouldn't say mine's creamy. It's definitely lighter than I remember. Um, as far as flavor, Yeah, because like it smells very like confectionery. You're thinking like I always say like make your own sundae bar, like the toffee, the caramel, the butterscotch, when this beer is fresh, it's like that in beer form. This particular, and as always, as we're reviewing the container we have in front of us, not like the whole product, like in an abstract, you know, like you might have like a really like a really good beer, but just a really bad or old bottle or can. It's like
Right?
that's all you have to go by, which is kind of unfortunate for the brewer. But um, yeah, I mean, so to me, this is like fruit forward. Um, the confectionery notes are there, but they're kind of muted. And I will say that it's much hoppier tasting than it is smelling. I can actually taste like a little bit of earthy hops and like I get enough bitterness for balance.
There is a firmness in the bittering, um, low level, but it's there. It's evident, and the fact that the beer, to my palate, has dried out some.
Mhm.
I'm accustomed to this beer being just a little bit sweeter. It kind of starts out pleasantly sweet, but towards the back, it dries out, and just I'm also that's where the oxidation is also being exposed.
Yeah. How do you perceive it? Is it like cardboard? Is it like lemon lollipop?
Paper, no, it's papery.
Tape paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really oddly enough, I'm not getting oxidation on this. I'm just kind of getting a less intense palate than it usually is. I do agree with you though that it is like a fairly dry. You would think like you'd have like this like kind of sticky or sweet aftertaste, but to me it's like
Mhm.
a very neutral aftertaste, like almost no lingering on here. Like I really concentrate. I get like a little bit of hops in the end, and I do get a little bit of a nutty character. I mean, it should be because they call it nut brown ale. Although I think the nut brown is more about the color than like a nutty or flavor.
Yeah, I would say so too. But occasionally within this range of beers, you can often get those nutty flavors.
Mhm. All right, so let's switch over to the Maduro. All right, cheers again.
Cheers.
Hmm. Um, to me, the taste is like what I said on the aroma. It's like night and day.
Taste and mouthfeel. And
Yeah.
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but yeah, um, there's an intensity to this that you don't find in the Sam Smith. Um, again, it's complex also. Um, I'm getting a little bit of a graininess, and
Hmm.
that kind of alludes back to what you and I were both picking up in the aroma, the toasty, biscuity thing. That's apparent on the palate, along with the toffee caramel. There's definitely a higher bittering component to it.
Hmm. I get it like a coffee thing on here. I think just because it's like so fresh. It could be the hops. I mean, it could just be. To me, this seems like a very American brown ale, and as we were saying off camera, this beer used to in the 2015 guidelines, BJCP had us under American brown ale, and then they moved it to British brown ale for 2021. I don't know why. As far as I know, they haven't changed the recipe. I mean, this definitely strikes me more American because it's like very hoppy. Oddly enough, it's not citrusy or piney. It's yeah, I'd probably call it floral or earthy, like maybe a little spicy.
But I agree with you on the point that this strikes me as being more an American brown ale than
Mhm,
it is British, especially when you are able to taste them side by side as we are. You very clearly see the difference between them.
mhm. And I will say that this has it does have the confectionery notes that I think the Sam Smith was lacking. So I am getting a little bit of toffee and hazelnut, like I said on the nose. Definitely have like a toasty quality to it. I would not go as far as say roasty because when I think roasty, I think stout. This is not quite as stouty or
Right. A lot of times the dark roasted grains bring with them a little bit of acidity, and I don't mean acidity as in sour, just
mhm,
acidity as in the acid, like old like day old coffee that can be
yeah.
acidic. So some dark grains will bring that acidity to the palate. And no, you're right. This beer is not exhibiting any of that.
Hmm. I know these are both fairly light beers, 5.5 ABV. Are you getting alcohol in either of them?
No, not at
Yeah.
all.
And I will say, like, the Cigar City does have like a little bit of like the fruity yeast esters, but I like they're kind of like where they're kind of front and center on Sam Smith's, they're kind of at the back of the line on the Cigar City.
Fighting with all the other aromas and flavors in there.
The Cigar City has a much longer aftertaste. I'd probably
Mhm.
call it like more of like a bitter, nutty, toasty aftertaste or something. It's not sweet.
There's the taste of malt, but it's a dry malt.
Hmm.
You're right. Most of the sweetness has disappeared by this point, and the finish is rather dry.
Okay. All right, well, let's check the specs for flavor. General to moderate malt sweetness with a light to heavy caramel character and a medium to dry finish. Man, we could go sentence by sentence. All right, so I would agree that Sam Smith is a general or gentle malt sweetness. Definitely some caramel. It does say a medium to dry finish. So as far as the Sam Smith goes, it's there.
Right.
Malt may also have a nutty, toasted, biscuity, toffee, or light chocolate character. Okay, I mean that's true for both of them. They're both pretty. They have some of those, and it does say may have, not must have or
Right.
should have.
Right. Yeah, it checks a lot
Medium.
of those.
Whoop, sorry, you got cut off.
I was just saying it checks a lot of those boxes.
Oh yeah, medium to medium low bitterness. Okay, well, I agree with the Sam Smiths. Um, well, it depends what you define as medium, because to me, the Cigar City, even though it says it's only 20 IBUs, this seems more like seems like it's almost like double that. It seems like it's like 40.
Right. And a lot of times you read the IBUs in the packaging or in the marketing materials, but there's also perceived bitterness.
Hmm.
The IBUs are measured scientifically. Perceived bitterness is on the palate. And a
Yeah.
lot of people perceive bitterness differently than what the IBUs tell you is in the beer. So
Yeah, and it's a lot of that probably would be like from like the toasty malts, like any roastiness and things like that.
exactly,
Some people are more sensitive to hops than others too.
certainly.
Malt hop balance ranges from even to malt focus. That's interesting because it says like I would think like it would always be, at least as far as balance goes, it would be malt balanced, at least especially for a British. If it was American, I could see.
Yeah,
Um,
I would think it would always lean towards the malt.
yeah. Low floral or earthy hop flavor optional. Low to moderate fruity esters optional. Okay, so wow, they give you a lot of options on this one. I mean, okay, so I mean, the Cigar City, I would definitely say low floral or earthy. Yeah. Same thing on the Sam Smith. I would definitely say low, maybe medium low. Low to moderate fruity esters. Okay, well, I would say low on the Cigar City, but I would say at least moderate for Sam Smith as far as esters.
Yeah, the Sam Smith seemed fruitier to me.
Hmm.
Uh,
Now that it's warming up, I'm getting like a little bit of a buttery note on the Sam Smiths. Are you picking that out at all?
which, by the way, is not unusual. A lot of Sam Smith's products do exhibit diacetyl.
Yeah,
Let me go back and revisit here.
it's actually pretty normal for a lot of British ale yeast strains. Very buttery. So as far as rating goes, this is kind of hard to again. It's like, and it's funny if you watch my episodes with Christina, we've had this conundrum where it's like they're both there, but for like completely different reasons. Like one is, checking off boxes A, B, and C, and one's checking off boxes D, E, and F. Um, but again, I still say like the Cigar City to me seems a little Americanized. I think it's like a little more toasty or nutty than it should be. I probably like a little bit more of like a yeast character. Also, my can is like super fresh, so it's like really hoppy, but it's not bad at all. It's definitely more to spec than not. So I'm gonna say 15. What do you think?
I agree with a lot of what you said, most of what you said, actually.
Mm,
But again, I feel that my job as a beer judge is to judge according to the style, the guidelines, and having experienced the Cigar City so far between the aroma and the flavor, it's not as British as I would like it, or I think it should be. So
hmm
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 12.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and then whoops, went too far. Samuel Smith's. I mean, ideally it should be a 20, but we have an old bottle, old can.
Right. If we had it at the brewery, it would be different.
Yeah. But I mean, it's definitely there. To me, it's my only complaint is that it's not like sweet or robust enough. It finishes a little too clean, and it might be a little more yeasty than it should be. But to me, it's a better example of the style than the Cigar City, even though to me it has less flavor, but it has like the right flavor, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
gonna go. I can give this a 16 or 17. I'm gonna say 16.
And I was going to go 16.
Okay.
For me, the major knock was the little bit of oxidation I'm picking up.
Yeah, mine's not oxidized, but I do get a little bit of diacetyl, which it didn't say that was allowable. Um, I don't know. I'm just gonna take a quick sip on each for mouthfeel. I'd probably put the Sam Smiths about medium, maybe even medium light, and the carbonation seems fairly low on it. Yeah, I would not call it watery. It's definitely not watery. It's it's smooth, I will say, but it seems a little light on the tongue.
Agreed. Most of the carbonation has dissipated at this point,
Mhm.
and it actually does come off feeling a bit watery. When I first tasted it, I said it was creamy. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was that nice fine bead carbonation in there that gave it that sense of satin across the tongue. With the carbonation gone now, that so is the that creamy mouthfeel.
Yeah, and this is not bottle condition. This is force carved, as far as I can tell. And what's interesting, I don't know if you noticed this on the Cigar City can. It actually says it's made with oats,
Right, right.
which oats usually give it like a creamy, almost like oily mouthfeel.
Yeah, it has little to do with taste. You have to use oats in large quantities before you actually taste or smell them. So it's mostly about mouthfeel.
Yeah, I would describe this Cigar City. It definitely like one of the first things you notice is like it just has more mouthfeel, more of everything on it. Like if the Sam Smith is medium light body, then the Cigar City is like medium, and I'd probably put the CO2 about medium, maybe even medium high. It definitely has like a crisp, a snap to it.
In comparison to the Sam Smith, yes, I agree.
Mhm.
But because I was swirling both glasses quite a bit when I was smelling and tasting. Even the Cigar City is lower in CO2 at this point.
Really?
But it still maintains a fair bit along with the substantial body. So
Mhm,
there's it really stands apart from the Sam Smith in terms of body
mhm.
and mouthfeel.
Okay, let's check the specs on that. Mouthfeel, medium light to medium body. All right, so they're both there as far as body, medium to medium high carbonation. Um, to me, the Sam Smith seems less than medium carbonation. Um,
Agreed.
I wish they would go a little bit more detail on this. Like
Yeah,
they
that
should do
that kind of
texture.
starts.
What were you saying?
I was just going to say that's very spare language there. They're not saying
Yeah,
a whole lot.
yeah. It's only two sentences. Usually, I almost never give a 5 on mouthfeel unless like a beer is scoring really high and everything else. You know, um, I think I would give a 4 for both. Actually, I might go 3 on the Sam Smiths because it's a little thin, a little undercarbonated.
That was the way I was leaning. I was going to do 4 and 3.
4 and 3. Okay.
Yep.
Overall, I mean, I mean, usually Sam Smith's, if it's fresh, relatively speaking, it's world class. This particular one we have is okay. In the Cigar City, it's funny because like this is like my can is like super fresh, but again, it seems more American than British to me, but it's not completely out of style. Even though I've been rating it pretty high on everything so far, I'm gonna say 7. What do you think?
In the Cigar City, I was going to go 7.
7?
Oh,
Okay.
I was kind of torn. I was thinking 6, but it's a quality beer. I think it's well made, very flavorful, not exactly the style. So I think I'm going to go with 7.
Yeah, so that's a 39 and 35. If this was an actual competition, we'd probably, each come down or go up a point or two. I could drop that flavor down to a 14, I think. Yeah. I think that's a little bit more accurate. As far as the Samuel Smiths, normally this is a 10. This particular bottle it's a 7, just like this Cigar City.
And I'm going to agree. That's exactly where I was going to go.
Okay. Yeah, so we both gave it a 39. It's funny because like I just off of hedonistic personal preference, I think this Cigar City has a little bit more flavor, and I'm having a little bit more fun drinking it than the Sam Smiths, which I usually love. But normally this is a great beer. Although
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting that like a beer you normally love, if you actually judge it to style, or if you judge it like next to another example, you might be like, oh wait, it's not as good as I thought.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that if I was at a bar and I had a choice between a pint of Sam's or a pint of the Maduro, I'd go Maduro. I like a lot of flavor. I like complexity. So that's the way I would lean. Strictly, like you said, hedonically.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If I was at a bar and they had this on tap, I would definitely get it because this is, I don't think I've ever seen Sam Smith. Well, maybe at Mahar's a long time ago, but yeah, I would go for like something that's a little harder to find.
Yeah, I've never seen it on tap, and I would actually be concerned about the condition if it was on tap because chances are it's not pouring very quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up for the British brown ale style. So thanks to Marty for doing the show with me, and stick around because I'm going to do a podcast with him, and I'm sure it'll be linked up there, down here somewhere. So thanks for doing the show, Marty, and I will see you for the podcast.
Thank
Cheers.
you for having me on. Cheers.
Yep. Somebody brewed it. Chad just reviewed it. Thanks for watching Chad's Beer Reviews. Trust me, the next episode will be a lot better.